Hi there, and thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of your Wheel and Anchor weekly newsletter. I'm here in Alberobello, in the heart of the Itria Valley, here in Puglia, in the south part of Italy. This is the heel of Italy, as I was mentioning last week when I delivered my report from Bari. And this is really a magnificent place to visit. You can see all of the famous conical roofed houses that date back to the 16th century. This is a technique they used of dry stone. All of these roofs and the entire structures actually are built in the original form without any cement, any grouting in between. It's really quite remarkable. As I've been finding on this trip, as I often find when I come to these fascinating places that we've all heard so much about, it is absolutely overridden with tourists. And, I guess it doesn't come as any surprise, if it weren't apparent before, we are in the midst of the post-pandemic travel boom, like we've never seen it before. And so when I look around the streets, the number of people that are wearing name badges or little radios, or, the tour guides holding up the sign. I mean, I think there's cruise ships. We're nowhere near the sea. Well, I shouldn't say that. We're half an hour from the sea, but it's remarkable. And so when we come here to Puglia next year, we will not be staying here in Alberobello, I can tell you that. Many of you will know my philosophy around travel, which is if the tour buses are going that way, I'm going that way. Not always possible for obvious reasons, because let's face it, you can't visit amazing places like this without running into thousands and tens of thousands of other tourists. But that doesn't mean we have to stay in the middle of it all. And while it might seem charming, the reality is, the amount of noise, the amount of clamor and sort of, I look at them like robots running around, not knowing where they're going next, is not really the experience you want when you come to Italy. You sit down in a restaurant and all you hear around you are foreign languages, meaning not Italian. Then it sort of detracts from the experience of being in Italy. So this is why I come on these missions, is to go and look around and find places like this, but then find the other towns. And there's another little town nearby here called Locorotondo, which you wouldn't have heard of, even if you hadn't heard of Alberobello before. But it has the charm, the flair of here. But, when I walk through the streets, I hear, obviously a few tourists, but predominantly Italian voices. And I sat down in a restaurant that was recommended to me by Michele, our charming local guide who is going to be taking us around next year. And he directed me to a restaurant that is not on the main square. A rule of thumb that I have is I don't eat on the main square, because that's only where the tourists are. They're overpriced. The service is usually lousy, and the food is questionable. I mean, even here in Italy, where service and food generally tend to be pretty good. But that's my tip of the day: don't eat on the main square. Anyway, just wanted to share with you in this week's newsletter a little bit about my philosophy on how I like to organize trips so that we can enjoy these wonderful parts of the world, come in, check it out, get out and go someplace more authentic. Next tour group is just arriving now, so I'm going to sign off. Keep an eye out for our webinars next week. We have multiple ones coming out. Of course, we just released our Algarve and Azores program in Portugal just a few days ago, as well as Iceland, and our 2024 edition of our Croatia program. So keep an eye out for those. Next week, the replays, I should say, are in the blog below. And our next week's webinars include Australia, and of course our wonderful Fjords of Norway trip, where the group just returned from this year's voyage just last week. So lots in store. Take care, and I'll catch up with you again in next week's newsletter.